Baltimore Ravens continue their offensive coordinator search. In their search to fill out Jesse Minter's staff, and intriguing new details have emerged.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage for you here. And also thank you so much to the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. On today's show, the Ravens continue to round out Jesse Minter's staff. Minter making hires all over the place. We'll talk about some new details emerging in the Ravens offensive coordinator search. We'll also talk about more Minter hires, as well as a new threat emerging for this Baltimore Ravens team. I want to tell everyone today's episode of Locked On Ravens is sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Here with me today, IngravenVids makes his return to the show. Ravens YouTube loyalty and royalty. Although I know you're humble about it, Ingraven. You're humble about it, I know. But Ingraven obviously does great work covering this Baltimore Ravens team. So I had to have him back on the show to talk about everything that's unfolded with this Ravens team over the last couple of weeks. And Ingraven, we didn't even have a chance to speak this season. I mean, what a weird year for this Ravens team. It was something, and we were talking before, we were wondering whether the Ravens were actually going to make significant changes based off the continuity this team has displayed. And to both of our surprise, Steve Bisciotti did it, and I think it was best for everybody involved.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it wasn't and didn't need to be this ugly, dramatic, crazy breakup or anything like that. I mean, I'm still surprised and shocked that it actually happened, because I just never thought that Steve Bisciotti would have fired Harbaugh this year, really would ever have fired Harbaugh. I was for sure, 1,000,000% sure that the only way Harbaugh was ever not going to be the Baltimore Ravens head coach was if he ended up stepping down, if he walked away, if he chose to be like, I think I'm done. But it didn't happen like that. And it was a surprise to a lot of us, but it was a surprise to a lot of them that were in the building too, from all the reports we read, from even hearing Steve Bisciotti talk about it too. He let it be known, like, hey, a lot of people were against the decision. A lot of people did not expect him to do that. And he just moved swiftly and he made it happen. But he did talk about how the Ravens, they have been going backwards for the past 3 years. And he saw just the decline in the team overall in a lot of different areas. So he made the move. And like you said, the move that he made, it ended up being the right one.
Yeah, it was time. Sometimes it's just time. And for Baltimore, I think that's the move they needed to make. Jesse Minter comes in. His press conference is going to be today at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. So we'll have coverage there and Ingraven. I'm sure you're going to have your coverage as well for that. But Minter's filling out his staff a little bit. A couple of really good hires, in my opinion, which we'll get to a little bit later in the show. But the offensive coordinator search has become the main topic of conversation since Minter is a defensive guy. They have to nail that offensive coordinator hire. A lot of people need that to be the right choice for them, regardless of who they go with. Names have started to come off the board at a pretty rapid pace. Joe Brady becomes the head coach in Buffalo. The Ravens weren't really linked to Brian Daboll, but he was a popular candidate. He is now in Tennessee with Robert Saleh, and even a guy like Nate Scheelhaase. And we'll talk about a little bit of how that Cleveland head coaching search went in the final part of the show, but he did not get that job. And now reports indicate that he is probably going to return to the Rams at this point. That was someone who was a potential candidate. But Brady, Ingraven, there were a couple of details about just how he became Buffalo's head coach. And one of them for me and Rappaport was that Brady was very high on the list for the Ravens offensive coordinator position. We know that he was brought in for a couple of interviews for the head coach job. And we also know that the Ravens were doing kind of like dual interviews, interviewing guys for head coach and coordinator positions. So feels like maybe if Buffalo hadn't taken that move to promote Brady from within to the head coaching job, he had a decently good shot to become Baltimore's offensive coordinator. Would you have liked Joe Brady? Is that the type of offensive coordinator you want Baltimore to go after? Because I think he was a very popular candidate within the cycle for multiple teams and clearly here for Baltimore as well.
initially, like days ago, when there were the possible talk of Joe Brady becoming Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator, I was cool with it. I was all for it because I thought about, man, look at Buffalo's offense. You got Josh Allen over there, and they have been able to put up a good amount of points. They have just been able to cause defenses fits. I mean, we know from firsthand experience dealing with the Bills, because they've certainly had our number this year and then the end of last year too. But when I think about it, especially when I just hear you talk about Joe Brady just now, something that came to my mind. I know Buffalo Bills a lot of times, even it's weird because James Cook, he went crazy this year. He did his thing last year too. He's a big part of everything that the Buffalo Bills did. And normally when he had more success on the ground, they would have more success in the win-loss column too. But I know there were a lot of times throughout the years with Buffalo where they would just like get away from the run game like a lot. And that could be kind of just traumatic for us as Ravens fans, because during the regular season, you know, our Ravens, they'll run over everybody. Well, a lot of the games, not everything, but they'll have one of the top ranked run offenses throughout every single year. But then in the playoffs, that's where a lot of things change. So again, when I think about Joe Brady, I wouldn't have been mad if they would have got Joe Brady as offensive coordinator. I feel like that would have been a very, very strong offensive coordinator as well. But also don't think that he would have been like a long-term thing either. I think he would have ended up getting an opportunity to be a head coach in the league soon enough, eventually. But he obviously got it this year, so we scrapped that now.
That's a really good point. I like that you made that point. That's something I've been mentioning too, is with the hire of Minter, which again is, I thought that was a great decision. I had Kubiak number one and Minter as a very, very, very close second. So I was happy with the hire. But the thing with Kubiak versus Minter is that with Kubiak, you would have had your offense set for as long as he was the guy. With Minter, it's the defense. But now you have to wonder about, are the Ravens about to get caught up in the offensive coordinator cycle where a guy has a great year with Lamar and then all of a sudden, boom, now they're off to be the head coach. You got to reset at that position. Then you do that again and again and again, which again, you want to hire the right guy. And no matter how many years he's with the team, make sure you get the right guy in the building. But that's a good point of like, you know, a lot of these teams that are going to be looking for head coaches next cycle, if the Ravens have a great year offensively, they're going to be probably looking at that OC in Baltimore of like, all right, because remember, Todd Monken got interviews all 3 years as the Ravens offensive coordinator. So that's something teams are going to look at. But another interesting detail, because Joe Brady's off the board, you know, we don't have to talk about him anymore. He's gone. One guy that is still technically on the board here at the time we're recording this, Ingraven, is Davis Webb. Now, he's been a very popular candidate throughout this entire process. The Ravens interviewed him for their head coaching position. And there was another report, Adam Schefter, saying that the Ravens actually requested to interview Davis Webb for their vacant offensive coordinator spot after he interviewed for the Raiders and the Bills head coaching jobs. Also, the Eagles did the same thing along with the Giants. So John Harbaugh strikes again, I guess. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But depending on the order of operations of this thing, Ingraven, the Broncos, we know, fired their offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi. And a lot of people see that as a move to say, Broncos don't want to lose Davis Webb. So there's an opportunity now to promote him from within, assuming he does not get that Las Vegas Raiders head coaching job. So there are just so many moving parts in this. But Davis Webb is a young guy, former quarterback, rising through the ranks really quickly. Now, I know there's some reservations about potential first-time play callers. Those first-time play callers, we know, Ingraven, the Ravens with this whole Zach Orr situation, people might be shying away from that a little more. But I think Davis Webb and even a guy like Shieldhouse, they're more ready for that opportunity. It's no slight to Zach Orr. I just think that, you know, Zach Orr at that time wasn't ready. I think a guy like Davis Webb is, assuming that, you know, maybe a miracle happens and Davis Webb is the guy for the Ravens at the offensive coordinator spot. Is that something you are intrigued with?
I am, because when you look at, I know for me personally, I don't watch college heavy, anything like that. But a couple of years ago, when Bo Nix, where did he go to? Oregon, I believe. Yeah. But the Oregon Ducks, they were playing, I think, the Colorado Buffaloes. So Shedeur Sanders in them. So I was watching that game, and I was watching Bo Nix, and I'm like, there's a guy who a lot of people are talking about as a first round draft pick. Like, I didn't see it. I didn't feel like he was, not that he wasn't special, but I just didn't feel like he was first round draft pick special. So he, of course, got drafted in the first round by the Broncos. And just to watch how much he's grown, and to watch him make play after play after play after play after play, and just to see his maturity over these past couple of years, just the past 2 years at quarterback, it's been crazy. So obviously Webb is a big part of that, but at the same time, with them firing their offensive coordinator, I think it's just pretty much a layup that he ends up staying with the team. I don't think they're going to want to let him go. And I think that just clears the path, because it's like, all right, yeah, you had your interviews. I think they felt that pressure with him getting interviews and him being requested to be interviewed. And they're like, you know what? No, that's our guy. He's coming up in the ranks with us. We're going to have that continuity on offense, especially the worst part for the Broncos. And it's got to be so frustrating, man. They did their thing. The offense did their thing against the Bills, and so grateful for the Broncos on offense, defense. They made me so happy, because that was the one team. The Bills was the one team out of all these teams that was in the playoffs. They cannot make the Super Bowl. Please don't. And I really thought that everything was lining up for them to make the Super Bowl, because obviously you kept hearing about, no Lamar, no Mahomes, no Burrow. Josh Allen has his easiest path to the in the playoffs. But then another thing we kept hearing about too, Josh Allen, the only stadium he's never played in before is Levi Stadium. And hey, where's the Super Bowl this year? So I was like, oh no, it's lining up for Josh. But when he got kicked out, I was so happy. But anyway, the worst part for the Broncos is that Bo Nix did his thing. He did what he had to do, beat the Bills, but then boom, injury. Now he misses literally the most important game of his life. That would have led to the next most important game of his life, being the Super Bowl. But he couldn't even play. So he did everything right, but then ended up still being wronged with that foot injury. So that's frustrating, man. But with the Broncos, I don't think they're going to let him go. I really don't. With the Rams, because what is he? The Rams, pass game coordinator?
For Shieldhouse, yeah.
Yeah. With him, that's a tricky one. And that would obviously be a promotion if he became the Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator. And I wonder, and I know I'm sort of going off on a tangent and maybe even going here for a reach, but if he became Ravens offensive coordinator, and he could bring, that would be a part of the McVay tree. So that's a real nice tree, as we know. But could he possibly maybe bring Devontae Adams too? But that's just me thinking way outside the box.
That's what we love, though. That's what we need. That's what the Ravens need to do, by the way. They need to think outside the box to get this team right. Obviously, that's more focused offensive line and an edge rusher. But you know what? If that were to happen, and again, reports are saying the Shieldhouse probably returning to the Rams, but that doesn't mean at the time of this recording he is fully going back. So maybe something could happen. Again, even if it's a slim chance, there is still a chance. You're telling me there's a chance. So we'll continue our offensive coordinator conversation in the second part of the show with some names that have already been reported for interviews with the Ravens, as well as one name that is intriguing a lot of people. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming up on Locked On Ravens. First of the show is brought to you by Rocket Money. Let's be real, managing your finances can feel overwhelming between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month. It's easy to feel like you're losing control, and who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. And I was shocked when Rocket Money showed me I was paying for a lot of subscriptions that I completely forgot about. It's already saved me money, and I love how it tracks all my subscriptions and lets me cancel them right in the app with just a few taps. No more hunting down customer service numbers, which is an absolute game changer. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. And the show is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life this year. TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Back here, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and IngravenVids still rocking out with you here. We have 5 days a week plus more Day of the Ravens coverage here for your regular show Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We have so many other things we do here on Locked On Ravens, including the Everydayer Club, where if you want access to that, it's some extra content we don't have time to do on the show anymore. You can check that out. Link in the description below, as well as on the Locked On website on the Locked On Ravens page. Now, Ingraven, we talked a little bit about the Joe Brady, what could have been in Baltimore, Davis Webb, the reports that the Ravens have requested to interview him. But the Ravens also requested to interview a couple of other guys at the offensive coordinator spot as well. Scotty Montgomery over in Detroit, as well as Declan Doyle, the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. Both those guys intrigue me for different reasons. I know a lot of people are talking about Doyle right now because obviously of that Chicago offense. It is Ben Johnson's offense, and Doyle does not call plays. So that would be, I guess, a promotion within that if you were to come to Baltimore. But one name that intrigues me, and I'm people are kind of talking about it, but not really. Where's the T. Martin rumblings? I'm intrigued in T. Martin here. Now, obviously, he and Lamar Jackson working together. He's been with the organization. Like, that's a name that I'm intrigued by. So when you look at guys like Montgomery and Doyle, who the Ravens have requested to interview, as well as a guy like T. Martin, are any of those guys options for you? Or do you maybe think that someone who we haven't even mentioned on this show yet, Cliff Kingsbury, who was linked to Lamar Jackson by Dan Rossini, could be the name that Baltimore's looking at?
T. Martin is a real sneaky one. But I think that it's a good type of sneaky. I believe he's been with the team since 2021, I want to say. But he's been there for a while. He was there for the Greg Roman days, the end of those, and he was also there with Todd Monken. So with T. Martin, I think he would be a very, very good choice, especially since the past couple of years he's been working with Lamar Jackson directly. If T. Martin was given the opportunity, not saying that he is and would be that, but in my opinion, it would be a similar situation to Zach Orr. Again, not saying he would be like Zach Orr, but what I had hoped with Zach Orr, what I really thought was going to happen with Zach Orr, I was just, when they decided they were going to go with him, because, I mean, we all knew if Ravens were going to make him the head coach, Mike McDonald, then we knew he was gone. So he, of course, went to Seattle. And they promoted Zach Orr, and I was cool with it. I was like, okay, cool. Zach Orr, first time opportunity, even though it is risky business because like we were coming off of AFC championship. So it ain't like we were this rebuilding team or anything like that. No, we were literally one game away from getting to the Super Bowl. Ooh, that hurts to say, especially when you look at Mike McDonald and now he's going to the Super Bowl. Anyway, we were right there. But Ravens took a big risk with promoting Zach Orr to defensive coordinator. So what I was thinking, all right, he's our defensive coordinator. He's going to take what worked with Mike McDonald, maybe put his own spin on it or whatnot, but he's not going to try to fix something that's not broken. Why would he do that? It's not going to happen that way. But literally, he broke everything. Everything ended up being broken. And then we had historically bad defenses 2 years in a row. We did have some nice little streaks in there, but then when you look at the quality of the opponent and whatnot, it's like, oh, well, okay. But you can't pick who's on your schedule. But anyway, our defenses have been really bad overall. So with T. Martin, I would think like with all the experience that he has and how long he's been with the Baltimore Ravens, and he's seen what has worked, and he's also seen stuff that hasn't worked in his just direct relationship with Lamar Jackson, that could certainly help with a lot. So could Jesse Minter trust the offense to be in his hands? Because whether it's T. Martin, whether it's Declan Doyle with that Ben Johnson offense over there in Chicago, whoever the offensive coordinator ends up being, I think that with Jesse Minter, it's going to be a hands-off approach. Since he's a defensive guy, his specialty is with the defense. So with offense, I'm sure he'll have his say-so and his input and whatnot. But I would think that he's going to be like, all right, you're the offensive coordinator. You got it.
Yeah, they're going to need to be able to get this thing right because, you know, with the way that we have seen the offense evolve, and again, it did evolve from Greg Roman to Todd Monken,
sure. But
it's about taking that next step beyond the first step that they took with that offense. And I think that there are a lot of really good young up and coming coordinators or potential coordinator options for Baltimore here that have had success at previous stops. But with that, there always does come a risk. And so for a guy like T. Martin, who again, like has been around the organization, it makes sense. Now he did say that he was maybe waiting on some opportunities, seeing what was going to develop, maybe with New York, maybe with Baltimore, some other things. So we'll see how that unfolds. But Jesse Minter, it's his most important hire, in my opinion, to get this offensive coordinator position correct. And speaking of Jesse Minter and Graven, I haven't even asked you about how you feel about Jesse coming into Baltimore, him being the pick over some other guys. We know that he's already beginning to fill out his staff. Mike Mickens coming in from Notre Dame, which I thought was incredible. One of the most highly sought after guys in the college ranks at his position. Dwayne Ledford coming in from Atlanta. And he's one of the best in the business. The only reason Atlanta got rid of him was because they brought in the best in the business in Bill Callahan. So they couldn't overlap there. There are also a couple of other notes on Jesse Minter's staff. Jess Rebeck reporting that alongside Ledford, that deal's finalized now, but they're also bringing assistant offensive line coach Sean Flaherty, who was in Atlanta last year with Ledford, and Tyler Santucci, who was the inside linebackers coach. He was a former Georgia Tech DC. He is going to be staying on Jesse Minter's staff because the Ravens blocked him from going elsewhere. We kind of heard those rumblings. So what's your impression of Jesse Minter so far? I know we're going to learn a lot more about him today at 11:30 Eastern time, but how'd you like the hire and how do you like his first initial moves as the Ravens head coach?
I did like the hire. I was cool with it. I didn't have anybody that I was absolutely like set in stone on. Like, all right, I definitely wanted to be this guy or nobody. No. And I understand the move. I do understand because I know a lot of people have been giving pushback on this hire because of something that you mentioned earlier with Lamar Jackson, with the possibility of if they bring in an offensive coordinator, that offensive coordinator has success, then that offensive coordinator could be right out the door. We're looking for an offensive coordinator the following year. So I do get that part for sure. But that's why, again, you got to get the hire right. It got to be right. Now, with Jesse Minter, biggest issues with these Baltimore Ravens, especially these past couple of years, it hasn't been offense. The offense has had their issues for sure, but the biggest issues with these Baltimore Ravens the past couple of years has certainly been the defense. And then a big complaint from Ravens fans, which is a legitimate complaint too, especially when it comes playoff time. They're like, man, the defense, they don't ever force no turnovers in the playoffs. Because we look at all these other teams in the playoffs. You look at Drake May, like the other day, he passed for 86 yards. 86 yards in the AFC Championship game, and now Drake May is going to be playing in the Super Bowl. So you look at these teams and how they force turnovers not only in the regular season but certainly in the playoffs, and that's where it counts the most because it helps their quarterbacks out. It makes life easier for their quarterbacks, for their offenses, and just for their teams as a whole. But the Baltimore Ravens have been lacking in that area. The turnovers that we forced was the Marcus Peters interception against the Titans in 2020, the 2020 season, and then the Kyle Hamilton forced fumble on Hayden Hurst in 2022 when Tyler Huntley was at quarterback in that playoff game against the Bengals. And I think that's it. I believe that's it.
I still have a graphic. I've never deleted the graphic because it's still relevant and it's still accurate from the Ravens in their playoffs. So people who listen to the show, they know it. So the turnover differential in the Lamar Jackson playoff losses in the Lamar Jackson era. And again, like you mentioned, the Cincy game and whatnot, 15 turnovers for the Ravens offense, 2 takeaways for the Ravens defense. That's resulted in a negative 13 turnover differential. Ooh. So it is, but it's to your point. Like they need to fix a lot of things, but that was the big theme of the playoffs 100% this year. It was timely turnovers, something the Ravens just have not been able to do in the postseason here.
Right. So that's why I get why they brought in Jesse Minter, because he's somebody. And the Ravens defense, they've been soft. They just haven't been hitting like they used to. The tackling has been bad, and they just the mentality and it just hasn't been there. The culture has just been thrown off. Obviously, again, you got Lamar Jackson, so you're going to be an offensive team, but you still want the defense. You still want them to help out. And Jesse Minter can bring just what we hoping that he brings. It's just a level of consistency with this team on defense. And with him having been a defensive coordinator and him really turning around that Chargers defense, one of the biggest things I think the Ravens defense needs to do is just focus on fundamentals. All the other stuff will end up happening, but the fundamentals need to get fixed first and foremost.
100%. The backbone is defense. It's been an offensive team with Lamar, and he's come in and redefined what that means in Baltimore. But defense. And again, you can just chalk it up to the cliche. Offense wins games, defense wins championships. And that's what this Ravens team is looking for. They're looking for championships. Coming up in the final part of the show, we'll dive into more Baltimore Ravens football talk. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is when you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for. Trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone for this show, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Let's go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. And the show is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. Now, I love seeing the all-in price up front because there are no surprise fees at checkout, and being able to see the view from the seat before buying makes the decision really easy. And Zone Deal stood out to me because you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats and you save. They have great last-minute options too with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices. And everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. Back here, Locked On Ravens, rounding out the show. Kevin Oestreicher, IngravenVids. We're still rocking out with you here on this Thursday. Ingraven, there's been a lot made about the recent coaching change in Baltimore. Obviously, we've talked a lot about who's come in and, Jesse Minter and everybody, but the guy's going out, John Harbaugh, but it's not just John Harbaugh. Most of the staff has left and is going on to other opportunities. Todd Monken is the newest head coach of the Cleveland Browns, which is interesting. I knew it was a finalist. He had multiple interviews, but I think a lot of people were anticipating it was going to be Jim Schwartz or maybe Nate Scheelhaus. But Todd Monken gets that opportunity. He already is taking Ravens assistants with him. George Warhop, the Ravens O-line coach, is going over to Cleveland. And I know a lot of people are saying, all right, cool. We're all cool with that. You can go over there, George Warhop. But
let's see you.
I think that this is an interesting conversation and one that I've been trying to outline with John Harbaugh, who obviously is now in New York, about it's not just about the coaching aspect of this where, Harbaugh's bringing over guys. Monken, I'm sure, will bring over more guys. T. Martin could be an option there. But the player aspect of it, where I'm sure players are going to follow John Harbaugh to New York. And I think now in Cleveland, I'm sure there are going to be some guys that, love what Todd Monken did with his time in Baltimore. They have a connection. And all of a sudden, a couple of Ravens might head on over to Cleveland with Todd Monken. So I guess a new threat with that for Baltimore. But how big of a deal is that to you, Ingraven? Is this something you're kind of monitoring really heavily? Or is it something where you're cool with it all and you're just ready for the next group of guys to come in and whoever leaves?
No, I mean, a bit of both, because that's obviously part of the business and you can't keep everybody. Well, unless you're the Philadelphia Eagles, they keep everybody. But besides them, you can't keep everybody. And that's an aspect of the Cleveland Browns with them hiring Todd Monken that I hadn't even thought of yet. Of course, with John Harbaugh, that was one of the first things that I think a lot of us thought of. Oh man, a lot of players could follow John Harbaugh to New York, but now with Todd Monken, him becoming the head coach, that completely like slipped my mind. So it is a real possibility. So Cleveland Browns, I'm not sure what their cap space is looking like. But yeah, that is a real chance that some other guys, because that makes it even tougher for Ravens to keep certain guys. Who knows what's going to happen with Tyler Linderbaum? A lot of people feel like it's a foregone conclusion that he goes to either John or goes to Jim, because that offensive line was really bad too. Jim Harbaugh, that is, with the Chargers. So it just adds another element of, oh boy, we could lose this guy too. Some of the players that I'm thinking about, because with David Njoku, I know a lot of Browns fans think he could be on his way out. Could the Browns be like, you know what? And Todd Monken be like, I want Isaiah Likely. Bring him over, because it's not looking like he's going to end up being back with the Baltimore Ravens. There's also Charlie Kohler, who I feel like he's slept on by a lot of people when it comes to free agency and just how valuable he is and could be to the Baltimore Ravens. And just how that he's a player that he doesn't get many opportunities. He does a lot of the dirty work, but he doesn't get many opportunities to make sort of the sexy plays, the nice catches and whatnot. But when the ball's thrown his way, he just catches it. He don't be dropping. He just, whenever his number is called, Charlie Kohler shows up. So with Todd Monken being with the Browns, Harbaugh, of course, with the Giants, yeah, the possibilities are just, they're endless for different guys that we could end up losing. And there could be somebody who may be feeling a certain type of way. And I get it's business, but they could be like, you know what? If Ravens don't offer me a certain type of contract, or they offer me some play contract, some contract that's not worth nothing, and the Browns come talking to that same player and he gets offered, he's like, oh, okay, you know what? Ravens tried me, they disrespected me. You know what? I want to try to take it out on them 2 times a year. So that little personal / business aspect could get in the mix as well. So for me though, one thing that I think Todd Monken does just for the Baltimore Ravens and the Browns, their whole rivalry, he just makes it more fun. So it's going to be interesting to see how he takes control of this team, how he runs the show, because this is going to be his first time running the show. He was, of course, their offensive coordinator a while back with Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry and them. But now, like, the whole show and operation is his. So that's going to be fun to watch from afar.
Yeah, and I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts on this, because I think for a lot of people, when Harbaugh went to New York, everyone's like, okay, he's in the NFC, who cares? They're going to play him once in however many years or whatever. But now this is like AFC North we're talking about. They're going to see Todd Monken twice a year, and Todd Monken's going to see them. Is there any concern with you that, Todd knows intricacies about what Lamar likes to do or what the offense likes to do? It's going to be a new system in Baltimore, obviously. Like, they're going to change stuff up. So in terms of Monken knowing the plays, I'm not concerned about that. But I've seen some people talk about it like, oh, is Monken going to have this advantage being in Cleveland and working with these guys so closely? Is that something you are concerned about? Or is it just going to be too different year to year, like we know the NFL is? It's not a concern for you.
Well, this is why coaching matters big time, because that is a good point, because Todd Monken obviously knows Lamar Jackson, then been working with Lamar Jackson for the past 3 seasons. So he will know his tendencies, and that can give him an advantage. But at the same time, that's why it's important that Ravens get the offensive coordinator hire right. So he can counter whatever information, knowledge, and understanding that Todd Monken has on Lamar Jackson and just this Ravens offense as a whole, and just brings a fresh new look. No, not everything is going to be brand new. Sure, they're going to carry some stuff over from the previous offense and previous offenses that worked, but also do their own thing, put their own spin on it, add their own wrinkles to it and whatnot. So it's important that these coaches, they get it right, because Todd Monken, he knows this team. He knows not only Lamar Jackson, but Derrick Henry. He knows Mark Andrews. He knows a lot of these different guys. He knows what they're good at. He knows what they may not be as good at. So that's going to be very important that whoever the offensive coordinator is, he counters all of that stuff.
And it all leads back to offensive coordinator, in my opinion. It all leads back to that. That's the big thing everybody's thinking about. So a lot of really fun things for this Ravens team. It's new, and that's fun to me. You get to see all these people come in, new things, new ideas. So I'm really excited for it. Ingraven, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for hopping on. Before I get you out of here, tell people where they can find you and what you're working on.
I appreciate you having me on for sure, man. Thank you as always, KO. You can find us on our YouTube channel, which is IngravenVids. We keep everybody up to date on everything going on with the Baltimore Ravens every single day, off season, on season, no matter what. We keep you updated with our Baltimore Ravens. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Everything is IngravenVids. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Be sure you go check Ingraven out. Links will be in the description down below. Be sure to go support him. Ingraven, I appreciate you again. And thank you to everybody who watched and listened to Locked On Ravens today. Coming up, we'll have an instant reaction after Jesse Minter speaks to the media. He'll speak at 11:30, so I don't know how long that's going to go. Maybe 12:31, 1:30. We'll see, but we'll have a reaction to it here. Plus, we'll have a regularly scheduled program in tomorrow as well, 6 a.m. Eastern time. So be sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.